Who are the best mid-round running back values? We'll talk about that right now on FFT Express. And good morning, everybody. Welcome to Fantasy Football Today Express. I'm Adam Aizer with Jamey Eisenberg. So the mid-round picks, if we just look at Fantasy Pros ADP and we start in round 5, there's only 15 running backs coming off the board in the early PPR ADP in the first 4 rounds compared to, get this, 26 wide receivers. So I think you're going to like pretty much all of these values, at least early. But Joe Mixon, for example, is 54th overall in ADP, and he's RB16. The idea of Joe Mixon lasting around 5 seemed laughable, as recently as yesterday, but maybe he makes it there now that they've signed Nick Chubb. When would you take Joe Mixon?
That's probably the spot, maybe late round 4. I haven't adjusted my rankings yet as we're recording this, so just keep that in mind. But I think the addition of Nick Chubb is somewhat problematic simply because while he may not be the same guy anymore, the Texans may not view it that way and may give him some more work than they would say, let's say, Dameon Pierce or Woody Marks or maybe even Dare Ogunbowale. So Mixon takes a slight hit, and that drops him down from what was a round 3 pick for me to at least round 4 and maybe even round 5.
All right, so Ken Walker is next, 56th overall, RB17. I'm sure you're going to be in favor of that one. And that brings us to an interesting trio after that. RBs 18, 19, and 20 in ADP. They're going in late round 5 in a 12-team league. Chuba Hubbard, Travion Henderson, and Alvin Kamara. So interesting. Hampton, by the way, is already off the board at this point if you're just looking at rookies. He's RB15, going 45th overall. But then you got this trio, late round 5, of RBs 18, 19, and 20. Chuba Hubbard, Travion Henderson, Alvin Kamara.
It's great value for all these guys. Henderson will be the one I think that's going to make people a little bit nervous just because rookie coming off of a shared situation in college where he wasn't necessarily a feature guy. And will he be the feature guy for the Patriots, who will probably still lean on Ramondre Stevenson more than the Henderson fantasy managers will like to see? So Kamara, if he's healthy, even in a bad offense, could still get you, 75 plus catches. And in PPR, that's huge. And in the case of Chuba, while I do think he will take somewhat of a step back because of Rico Dowdle and Trevor Etienne being there, I don't think it'll be a significant step back. So great value for all 3 of these guys, in my opinion. And the one I'm probably the most excited about, though, is Henderson, because if he does take that featured role for any extent, could be awesome for the Patriots.
But he's not your highest ranked.
He's not my highest ranked. Chuba is my highest ranked.
Okay, so Hubbard, Henderson, Kamara. And then we go about a round later. So now we're getting into the mid to late round 6, and we're RB21 is James Conner, and then David Montgomery, and then Quinshon Judkins, and then Caleb Johnson. So you've got 2 veterans and 2 rookies in this range of late, let's call it mid-round 6 to mid-round 7. James Conner, David Montgomery, Quinshon Judkins, Caleb Johnson. You like this group?
Yeah, I do. I think it's a little too soon for the rookies in terms of their running back rankings, but not in terms of their value. So I would take a few of these running backs sooner than, some of the ADP suggests. But in the case of Conner, like as we talked about on the full length episode, like I can't sit here and say James Conner is someone to worry about and then say Joe Mixon someone to, get excited about. They're both coming off very strong seasons. Mixon may have been a little bit better. But Conner now has less competition, got a contract extension last year. They're basically the same age, Mixon's 29, Connor's 30. And so there shouldn't be that much separation between them at this point, based on the potential of Nick Chubb signing. So I think for Judkins and Caleb Johnson, look, they're going to be in shared situations. Judkins, I hope, is not sharing with 2 guys, which could be, Jerome Ford and Dylan Sampson. Johnson will share with Jalen Warren, and that could be a problem from his role in the passing game. But again, you're looking at 2 guys that got drafted in situations where they could be their lead running backs. And there's another rookie that we haven't talked about yet that, should be in the conversation with them as well, which is RJ Harvey.
Oh, yeah. We're going to love that value on RJ Harvey based on early Fantasy Pros average draft position. So we're up to 24 running backs. We're also up to time to take a break. We'll be right back and talk about maybe some values that we don't love as much. We'll talk about that after this on Fantasy Football Today Express. All right, the next group of running backs as we get into round 7 and 8 and RBs 25 through 27. We'll do this trio here. All right. Aaron Jones, Tony Pollard, Najee Harris.
Pollard I'm okay with in this range. Najee, I don't want to draft in this range because I think Hampton's going to be a significant problem and hopefully the best running back for the Chargers, especially based on how people are drafting. You'd like to see him, be the superstar that he was, thought of coming into the NFL and where he was drafted with a round one pick. I'm almost completely out on Aaron Jones if he's going in this spot. I know he was awesome last year. He's on a great offense. I think the Vikings offensive line will be a little bit better. Maybe the quarterback play will be better, which is hard to say because Darnold was great last year. But I do think, based on what Kevin O'Connell has said, the addition of Jordan Mason, that we could see Jones in a scaled back role, could see him lose some touchdowns. And he's another running back that at the age where you start to be a little bit concerned at 30 years old. Last year he played through 3 injuries. This year, will he play through those injuries if he's able to? So I'm not drafting Aaron Jones until these guys are off the board already.
The Najee Harris average draft position doesn't make any sense to me, really. Like, when you think that Amarian Hampton is RB 15 in ADP and Najee Harris is RB 27 in ADP, then you're basically hoping that they're the Lions, right? Or like a worse version of that, where they're just running the ball a ton and they're both scoring a bunch of touchdowns, because you're not going to get, like, Najee Harris isn't going to catch 50 balls. I know he did his rookie season, but he's not going to be a Jalen Warren type player. So I don't really get how drafters are valuing Hampton so high and still Najee Harris as RB 27. I just doesn't make any sense to me. Like, one of those guys is going to be a bust at those ADPs. But okay, anyway, Jalen Warren is next. Jalen Warren's RB 28. Tyrone Tracy's RB 29, and Isaiah Pacheco is RB 30, and RJ Harvey is RB 31, and we are now at pick 102. So we're late. We're into round 9 now. Jalen Warren, Tyrone Tracy, they're kind of like late round 8, and then Isaiah Pacheco, RJ Harvey into round 9 of a 12-team league, and then DeAndre Swift and Jordan Mason. So unbelievable values. And then Cam Scatterbo and Brian Robinson Jr. That's 35 running backs. But Jamey, I mean, man, if you told me that I could get Isaiah Pacheco and RJ Harvey in round 9, rounds 8 and 9 or something like that, I wouldn't draft more than one running back in my first 7 rounds.
I was just gonna say, like, this is the easy argument for zero RB, to go get 5 receivers, a quarterback, and a tight end, and then to start, picking these guys off 2 rounds before their ADP or whatever the case may be, however you start your team. It's just, it doesn't logically make sense that this is how it's going to play out when we get to August, what the average draft position will look like. But I mean, imagine you get studs at every other position, and then you walk away with Pacheco, Swift. We still haven't even talked about guys that are going to have some relevancy still, like Ramondre Stevenson and Rashad White, and those other guys that could be your 3rd, 4th, 5th running backs. But I mean, imagine getting Pacheco and Harvey and Swift at this range with all those other players that you could get at those other spots. Like, you'd be dominating your fantasy league if everybody stays healthy.
And even if you want to take a less outlier ADP, because I cannot see the 100th overall, we're getting RJ Harvey and Isaiah Pacheco and DeAndre Swift. Let's just look at NFC average draft position since June 1st. Pacheco is 85th. All right, that's the 7-8 turn. DeAndre Swift is 81st. So maybe you go round 6 and 7 for them. Maybe you go round 7 and 8 for them. Yeah. RJ Harvey is 61st. So I think we still think that's great value for him. But yeah, so these are guys that you should know. Right now, Pacheco and DeAndre Swift look like great values. Brian Robinson going 96th overall, still really good. And here in this draft, Najee Harris is RB 32, or in this ADP, RB 32 going 99th overall. That sounds more like it. Ramondre Stevenson, 108th overall.
It's just good value. And this is one thing, again, just take a broader view of it. These rookies have helped we think these rookies have helped the NFL and help backfields and help these teams. Will that play out? We'll have to see. Last year we thought Trey Benson and Blake Corum and, Kamani Vidal were going to have roles. They weren't the same caliber of draft class or players, but we thought, okay, these guys are going to be potential difference makers, and it didn't play out that way. So Stevenson may be better than Henderson. Hampton may not be as good as Najee Harris. Those Dobbins coming into Denver could not be, something that's an afterthought. It could be the lead running back there. So there are a lot of ways that this could play out, but it's just created a lot more options for fantasy managers as we sit here in the early part of June to where these, values could be incredible. So it's just it's going to be a lot of fun once we get to August and see how the training camp battles are shaking out and how these, younger running backs are influencing these backfields.
Yeah, and just to let you know, you're taking fantasy advice from Jamey, who's 1-9 in a fantasy baseball league. Just letting y'all know. All right, we will talk to you. We will talk to you tomorrow on Fantasy Football Today Express. See you later.